You're listening to Karle and Kenner's Hitting the Bar. In the blue corner, we've got Mr. Karle supporting Tottenham. In the red corner, we've got Mr. Kenner supporting Arsenal. Together, they will be discussing all of your football views, all of your football news. So join us here on Karle and Kenner's Hitting the Bar.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of Karle and Kenner's Hitting the Bar, the football podcast. I'm Chris Karle, and with me is West Ham supporter Geoff Saunders. Hello, Geoff. Welcome.
Hi, Chris. Good to be here.
Now then, we've got quite a bit to get through because there were a lot of incidents over the weekend in the Premier League especially. So we'll start there, and I'm going to start with your team, West Ham, who were playing the team you call terrible and the worst team in the league, Newcastle. I think I'm just going to leave it for you to run us through that game.
Yeah, well, I think what happened in that game is Fabianski is looking a better and better keeper every match that Roberto is between the sticks for West Ham. And he was not responsible for all three goals, but he should have saved all three from Newcastle. And to be fair to Steve Bruce, who I don't rate as a manager at all, he does seem to have this collection of really not very good players playing to a plan and doing what he wants them to do. And the two Longstaff lads in midfield seem to be the spark that's made this happen. So I think a couple of weeks ago I was absolutely certain they'd go down probably with the record lowest points, but there's possibility he could keep them up. But they're going to have to play out of their skins for pretty much every match to do it. The players are not very good.
No, the players aren't very good, and I think there's not much argument coming from anybody from that one, but you've got to get the best out of what you can.
Indeed.
You know, they beat Man United, which I suppose in foregone days would have been a different sensation.
Yeah, but nowadays it's lads, it's Man United.
Yeah, now I mean, Bournemouth did it at the weekend as well, so it's not that big a deal. Do you think the problem is with the manager at West Ham? Is he not a right fit, Pellegrini?
He should be the right fit. I mean, Villarreal under him were very, very like West Ham. It's a small catchment area, a local club, play attacking football, and the people keep coming to the ground. You know, they have 35,000 people come to the ground, and there are 50,000 people in the town. You know, so it's a very similar situation to West Ham.
It's a local but popular.
Yeah, local but popular, and they play good football. What is clearly not working is that Pellegrini is not getting the best out of that midfield and attack, because you write down the names of West Ham's midfield and attack, and really there's only City who are better, and Liverpool partially better with the front three. So he's not getting the best out of them, and we can't defend. I mean, it's just shocking defence. I mean,
you're as low down as Tottenham, for goodness sake. What's going on?
I know. we dropped below Manchester United.
Yeah, that is bad.
Yeah,
that is bad. And so you think West Ham? You still maintain that with the right tactics, West Ham are a top 7 team?
Oh, yeah.
They're that good?
Yes. Oh, no, they are. No, we need Fabianski back fairly quickly.
Yeah, so it's a goalkeeping problem and not so much a problem of the manager?
If the manager has been given the resources, which Pellegrini has, and the results aren't coming, well, he's not getting the best out of the resources. Therefore, you go for change the manager, don't you? And it's not just about football. That's life and business in general. Your job as a manager, make the best use of the resources you have, and he clearly is not doing that. Same as the man at the Arsenal.
Well, yeah, I want to move on now to Arsenal because it gives me great pleasure as a Tottenham fan. You know, there's been a lot of talk. We spoke about it on the last podcast, you and I, about Arsenal and what's going on. The manager doesn't understand the players don't understand the manager. And then there's all the thing with the captain Xhaka last week. This week, they went 1-0 ahead at home to Wolves. It ended up 1-1. And there is still talk, especially from Arsenal fans, of calling for the head of Emery and getting a new manager. What are your thoughts?
I would apply exactly the same logic as with Pellegrini. They spent quite a lot of money and they don't appear to have very much in response for it, do they?
No.
At the start of the season, everyone was saying, oh, well, they'll score goals. You look at that front three. Well, that's not really happening either, is it? I mean, this Pepe, £72 million for a player who was the second top goal scorer in France.
In France.
In France.
Come on.
I mean, these are dog goals. You know, 7 goals in France equals 1 goal in the Premier League.
Yes, I like that, dog goal. So, yeah, if you score 7 in France, it's only worth 1, isn't it? Yeah. He's not as good as possibly they'd hoped he was, or as much as they paid for him.
Well, there is something else in addition to that. They already had Lacazette and Aubameyang, who were a good attacking duo. They were scoring goals. But bringing Pepe in seems to have stopped that. But they spent £72 million in an area that they didn't have a weakness in. And everybody knows they need a good holding midfielder, and Xhaka is not that, and good central defenders. So they haven't addressed the key area that needed addressing. Now, I don't know enough about Arsenal's structure to know whose fault that is. Was it the manager saying, oh no, I want another wide player? Or was it the director of football or whoever does that sort of thing at Arsenal saying, oh no, we must have this player because his numbers are fantastic or whatever? But, as I said, the numbers in France really don't mean very much.
The thing about Arsenal and is, all right, the manager, should he go? There is a rumour now, and you have an opinion on this, we're going to get to that, but there isn't a rumour going around that Mourinho could be taking over from Unai Emery. I mentioned this to Steve Kenton yesterday. He sent me a text saying that he believed that this rumour was gaining traction. But I did mention to him that, first of all, Mourinho likes to spend a club's money, and Arsenal do not like to spend their own money. However, Steve did say that it would be, he's ambivalent about it, but it would in many ways be a good fit because of how defensive he plays. And in answer to what you were saying last week about Arsenal currently have no identity, Steve says that defending staunchly and having a strong defence and breaking and getting the odd goal on the counter is Arsenal's identity and the way Mourinho sets up teams. So is there a fit there, in a way?
I can see what Steve's saying, but you're not going to win the league doing that. I mean, Mourinho is very much yesterday's man, and the style he has and the way he sets teams up, the time has passed. Klopp and Guardiola, they've moved it on. And not just those two, but lots of managers around Europe. They've all moved on from that. This is, he's talking about a style of play that's 15 years out of date now. So I don't see that takes Arsenal any closer to a top four position, to be honest. And as you say, Mourinho likes to spend a lot of money, and he does not develop young players. He just doesn't do it. He doesn't trust young players, doesn't pick them when he's got them.
So he's not the man for Arsenal, not a man for anybody.
I would question whether he's the man for anybody, to be quite honest. Arguably an Italian team, maybe, but I don't know.
What about a German team? Because you and I were talking earlier, Bayern Munich have just sacked their manager, which you saw coming. He's not a fit for anybody, particularly in the Premier League, and you say possibly an Italian club. But Niko Kovac has just been sacked by Bayern Munich, having been thrashed by Eintracht Frankfurt. There is a vacancy there. Obviously, going to be a lot of people up for the job at Bayern. Let's just quickly talk about that and then go back to what happened this weekend in the Premier League. Well, Mourinho for Bayern?
I can't see it, to be honest. They've had Guardiola. Why would they want to go backwards 20 years to Mourinho? And it might sound quite convenient that his agent had released these stories 2 weeks ago about him learning German. And everybody knew Kovac was going to be fired sooner or later. It was only a matter of time. They didn't even like him very much when he was winning. So
even when they were winning, he wasn't popular. Right. Basically, what you're saying is the agent's putting Mourinho up in the shop for window.
Absolutely, yeah.
We know you're going to sack him. Mourinho's learning German, although he speaks how many languages already?
I think he speaks 5 already.
5 languages already. I mean, he was a translator, wasn't he? So
that's right,
you'd expect him to. But you don't think he'd go to Bayern? I think
he would go, but I don't think they would offer it to him.
Yeah, sorry, I should rephrase that. He would go like a shot, but they would not invite him.
I can't see it, to be honest, no.
We don't think Mourinho to Arsenal or Bayern, bad fit in both cases.
I cannot understand why any club that is owned or run by people who understand football would hire Mourinho as a manager. I just can't see it.
So what should Arsenal do then? Because there are problems there.
Arsenal should go to Allegri and say, will you come and be our manager?
Emery's never really fitted in. I mean, he's a fabulous manager. I mean, he's got some great statistics behind him.
He does. He's won the Vars. What do they call it now? The
Europa League.
That's the one. Yeah, that's the one. He won that 3 times, didn't he? I think.
Yes.
He has a certain style about him, but the words from the players, a lot of whom have been quoted, is that they don't understand what he's talking about.
Apparently, they don't. Not only do they not understand what he's talking about, but now they are openly mocking him, apparently, and doing impersonations of him.
So he's lost the dressing room, so he's got to go, because you can't come back from that.
I know it's an important thing because you have an international squad, but apparently his ability to speak English is one of the problems because he's never written the 18 months he's been here. I suppose his English hasn't improved very much. He still uses a translator for quite a lot of his work.
Well, it's a problem, isn't it?
It's a problem of communication, literally on that scale, but also generally communicating what he wants the tactics to be understood as, because they don't seem to have much of a tactical plan, do they?
No, that's right. But if you stuck a load of a load of kids from different countries together who don't speak the language and put them on the pitch with a football, they will sort it out without any language. And that's not even happening at Arsenal.
That's not happening, no. I mean, professional footballers, we've said it before, but you should have an eye for where the ball's going to go. You know what position you're playing. You know who's going to run into what positions into the box, who's going to track back. So you know where to pass the ball to find a player. You don't need telling for that. It's something you kind of... that becomes part of your body language, doesn't it? It becomes body memory, muscle memory.
Yeah, it should do, and that's one of the reasons why they run these routines. Training sessions now are routines all around transition. So when you lose the ball, what do you do? Where do you stand? How do you face? What position are your feet in? And they go into this incredible detail. And maybe one result of this is that they're taking spontaneity out of it. And they're not being footballers anymore. They're in a quandary. Do I do what the manager said, or do I, no, I can't do that. The manager said no. Oh, I should have done that. It's killing their game, and it might explain Arsenal, because when you look at it, you can't make any sense of it.
All right, we'll move on from Arsenal. We may come back to them because they are the gift that keep on giving.
They are, yeah.
Let's move on to Liverpool and Manchester City, because both had frights in their games. Liverpool were 1-0 down till quite late and then scored 2 very late goals. Man City also 1-0 down against Southampton. Second time they played them in a week, went on to win 2-1.
Yeah.
Liverpool, Geoff, scored 2 late goals, very, very late goals. Guardiola, in his press conference after the game, said that, yes, we're both teams, we both have not been known to score late goals. That's how you win championships. He said, and Liverpool sometimes do it by diving and sometimes by scoring good goals.
Oh, okay. So he's trying to add a little bit of spice to it then. Yeah, okay.
He's spicing up I suppose that's what it's. Although one of the Liverpool players did get booked for diving in the box during the game, so looking out for a penalty. Klopp has said about a year ago on Sky Sports, I think, I do not have divers in my team. But Guardiola quite clearly thinks he does, or wants us to think he does.
Well, yeah.
Or referees, maybe.
Well, Sadio Mane is picked every week, isn't he? Yeah, so
I don't think there's any doubt in that.
I think for both Guardiola and Klopp, they were ideal results, because what you want as a manager or a coach is you want something to work on in your training. So you want to be able to point to something, say, we did that badly, let's do that better. And you sort of recalibrate the team and you remotivate them. Like, okay, this last weekend was perfect for both those, because they got the points, so that's fine. But the players can't be cocky, because they know they were behind for most of the game, so there were things to work on. So for the managers, I think it was perfect.
That's interesting what you say about having something to work on, because sometimes they can win, Man City especially, win 3-0 with ease. But you look back at the statistics, or you look back at the game, if you'd only just watched highlights, and you think, well, how did they win, really? And then he's got nothing to work on, because there's nothing because the other team may have been very bad, but there's nothing to go on, because they won, but it's not that clear how they won so easily. But when they have to struggle, you can see where the deficiencies are.
Yeah. So I think for both managers, they were very, very good results for a number of reasons. But they do show that those two are ahead of the rest, and the best of the rest, which is probably Leicester, are not going to catch them. But there's competition between the two of them, and the teams that win the league are the ones who manage to win when they haven't played well.
Another team who are doing well, of course, Leicester City, who've got more points, more goals scored, less goals conceded this season, and more possession this season so far than they had in 2015-16 when they won the league. Now, they won't do it this year, we don't think, because of Liverpool, because Manchester City. People said that the year they won it, they won't win it, but they did. But they were up against Tottenham, so different story. They won again on Sunday, wasn't it, against Crystal Palace away. I think the highlight was Jamie Vardy flapping his arms and doing a swooping bird when he scored his goal. He did it in front of the Crystal Palace fans, who, of course, are known as
the Eagles.
The Eagles.
Yeah.
So a bit of a wind-up from Vardy there. He's got other things to worry about at home. However, Leicester City, under Brendan Rodgers, what can you say about them? An away win, solid away win.
Very good win, yeah.
They've scored 9 without return. They've scored 2 today yesterday without return. They're looking very, very solid at the back as well as the front.
Yes, they do. Well, that back four. Is there a better back four in the league than Leicester's? I'm not sure there is.
You think they've got the tightest defence? Almost.
They're up there with Liverpool, definitely. And I'm not sure of the stats to say which is better, but there can't be much in it. Possibly they're a little bit better because the right back is a better attacking right back than Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Wow. They've got the second best goal difference in the league. Only Liverpool have a better goal difference. So it says a lot.
Yeah, but not everybody's played Southampton yet. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so we think Leicester are going to finish third. Do we still think that?
I think they could finish third.
Yeah. All right. Now, of course, then you've got the other teams, Tottenham. I want to talk about that because Tottenham were away at Everton yesterday. Last season, in that same fixture, we beat them 6-2. Things have changed a little bit. There is this so-called crisis at Tottenham. Tottenham were winning 1-0 up until the 78th minute when Son, who is an absolutely brilliant player, as we know, one of the best Tottenham have got currently, and not the sort of player you expect to get booked for harsh tackles. He's not a hard player.
No,
he's not an unfair player, I think.
No, he'll mistime a challenge, as most forwards do, but there's never any malice in them at all.
Well, unfortunately, he made a fairly innocuous tackle, looking at reviewing the footage afterwards, made a fairly innocuous tackle on Gomes. Gomes went down. The tackle propelled him towards Aurier. As he tried to stop himself from bumping into Aurier, he landed very badly on his ankle, which then Aurier stepped on, unfortunately, as he was trying to get out the way. The referee gave Son a yellow card, which might even be considered harsh, actually. He then looked at the injury. Gomes was in absolute agony, writhing around, screaming in pain. He then changed it to a red card.
Well, if that is all that has happened, then that is clearly wrong, because you should be disciplining the challenge, not necessarily the result of it. I don't think it was a reckless challenge, so it shouldn't have had a red card. But maybe somebody spoke in the referee's ear and said, you've got to do more than yellow card because this guy's broken his leg and it looks terrible, etc. I'm not happy about changing that yellow to that red, to be honest.
Because it was a horrendous injury. The pain and the screaming was very, very obvious. And Son himself, once he saw the injury, was inconsolable. He himself is in absolute tears. Even some of the Everton players had to console the player who had injured their player.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? When it is a really bad challenge, then the opposition players react, and they didn't react as if it was a really bad challenge. The result, what happened at the end, was really bad.
Yes,
but that wasn't really down to Son, I don't think. But anyway,
I don't think anybody blamed him. Here's a contrast for you, though. Xhaka, of course, the Arsenal captain last week, walks off in frustration, swearing at his fans. The Everton captain went in the Tottenham dressing room after the game to offer his condolences to the Tottenham team for the red card and to Son, and to check on Son and see if he was all right, because he was so emotional about having caused the injury. That's a captain.
Yeah,
I think.
Indeed. Yeah.
That's the correct way to behave. Everton then went on to score an equaliser. I don't think anybody had much heart for the game after that, to be honest.
Quite.
I think that, after 78, 80 minutes, there was something like 8 minutes added on because of that injury. That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
It was a 1-1 draw. I think probably, as a Tottenham fan, I'd have taken that at the beginning of it, to be honest, with what's been going on at Tottenham lately. I can't believe, though, that we're so far, but we're 5 points away from fourth, but 5 points away from Arsenal. How Arsenal are so far above everybody, it must have been a very good start to the season.
Yes, they had quite a good start to the season in terms of results, but they're never convinced. And now the results are catching up with what we've been seeing.
Yeah, I think we're going to see them fade. I think the draw for our Tottenham is good enough. I think that's good enough. I think that might help to pull us around a bit. We've had a couple of good results lately. And we've got Champions League this week away at Red Star. But we beat 5-0 at home.
Yeah. I mean, you should get the win from there.
Yeah. Shall we move away from Premier League football for a moment and go to your trivia question?
So this is a little bit, I can't think of the word, maybe retro.
A little bit retro, but
a little bit retro. So apologies for that, but it is actually also relevant to a club that are doing very well this season. So there are two grounds in England that have hosted an FA Cup final, an England Football International, and a cricket Test match. Now, it's all three, okay? There are two grounds that have hosted all three of those. Now, most people know the Oval as one of those, the cricket ground. And they know that because every time there's a cricket international there, some commentator will mention it. But what is the other ground? And it is a football ground. It's a football ground that has hosted an FA Cup final, an England Football International, and a Test match.
As you say, the Oval is the one that came to my mind.
Yeah.
The rest is going to be a challenge, so we'll find out the answer at the end of the show. Let's move on, though, and we will come back to the Premier League, but we did want to speak a little bit about Spanish football. You've got some opinions, so guide us through what's been happening in Spanish football and La Liga, basically, isn't it?
Well, there have been a lot of strange results. Strange in the sense that we're not used to seeing them, like Levante beating Barcelona at the weekend.
Yeah, Barcelona and Real Madrid have lost games too.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't they lose last week to Mallorca, who just come up? I mean, that's happening quite a bit, isn't it?
It is happening quite a bit, and both the managers are under pressure. I mean, Zidane for a number of things, but the results not going his way are the biggest one, probably. Valverde is never convinced, and I think it's only lack of a suitable alternative that's kept him in the position. But that suitable alternative, well, there are two of them maybe. One is obviously Allegri, who decided to have a year off, and basically, which means I'm going to take my time and pick the best job which becomes available. And the other one is the manager of River Plate in Argentina, Marcelo Gallardo. Now, Gallardo was a very, very good inside forward stroke attacking midfielder for Argentina in 2 World Cups, and I remember him playing, and he was very, very good. As manager of River Plate, he's their most successful manager ever. He's won more tournaments, sort of international tournaments, if you like, so South American and world tournaments, than all the other managers of River Plate put together. He's taken River Plate as far as they can possibly go. He's 44 years old. I think there's probably 2 Spanish clubs that are going to be looking in his direction.
Yeah, that's a bit left field, actually. You heard it here first.
Yeah, so Allegri is sitting there, and everyone knows Allegri is sitting there deciding what to do. You know, has he wasted his money on the English lessons, or should he have been taking Spanish lessons? Who knows?
Yeah.
But, Italian and Spanish, they're almost the same, aren't they? In one language, the words end in I, in the other, they end in O. So we'll see. Gallardo, note that name down.
Right,
because he's coming to Europe.
Listen, I've just had a very strange thought. Niko Kovac, just been sacked by Bayern Munich. Hello, Arsenal. There's an opportunity for both of them. Wouldn't that be a bit of a coup for Arsenal, wouldn't it? Just because he's not good enough for Bayern doesn't mean he's not good enough for Arsenal.
Yeah, but the issue with him at Bayern wasn't that he wasn't good enough. They just didn't like the way he'd set the team up to play. They felt it wasn't the attacking Bayern that they want to see.
As I say, hello, Arsenal.
So it might be. I mean, he's a decent manager. He's a good manager. Yeah,
and if he's not prone to playing free-flowing attacking football, I don't think that'll bother Arsenal. I think that's their identity, as Steve said, as you've said.
Indeed, yeah.
So I don't know, Niko Kovac. Again, that, as you were saying there, bit left field for Barcelona.
I'm nil zum Arsenal.
Yes. All right, so that's what's happening in Spain. Over in Italy, very quickly, I was watching footage late last night of Mario Balotelli. Now, of course, we know he's got a bit of a fiery temperament. We know he can be a little bit unhinged at times, so we say his behaviour can be a little bit different from other people.
Yeah.
But in this case, my sympathy goes completely to him and support, should that matter. He was obviously playing in a Serie A game. He was just about to see the ball over the goal line for a goal kick with a player behind him trying to get the ball off him. When he'd heard something happened, he picked up the ball, kicked it into the crowd, threw his arms up in the air and started to walk off the pitch and round towards the dressing room. The player behind him obviously thought that's a handball, started trying to drag him back. Other players got involved, eventually from pushing and shoving, and then there was a moment of realisation when everybody could see that Balotelli had explained what happened. It turns out he'd been getting racial abuse and monkey chants throughout the game, and he was by the goal line. He could hear it a lot clearer. He'd had enough. Basically, he just said, I'm not having this anymore, and walked off the pitch, said, I'm not playing. The other players, many from both teams, followed him off, and then they had a conversation, and they sorted it out and came back on after a quarter of an hour or something. But that's quite something. I think that's a brave thing to do.
It is a brave thing to do, and I think it's going to take more players and more teams doing that to do anything about this racist chanting. The authorities have shown that they don't give a damn. This UEFA protocol, they call it, will allow you to racially abuse players 3 times before there's any punishment. I mean, it's pathetic.
It can't be wrong the 3rd time, but not the first 2.
Exactly.
It's either wrong or it's not.
Yeah.
And it is.
They have shown they don't want to do anything about it. The punishments are flimsy. What did Bulgaria get fined? I mean, it was nonsense, wasn't it? UEFA are not serious. They fined Bulgaria for the worst instance that any of us have ever seen, and the abuse the England players took was horrific. It was terrible. They've been fined €75,000. I mean, that's
£65,000 or whatever.
It's pathetic. So they are saying we don't really mind 65,000. They can find that down the sofa somewhere. And as for playing matches behind closed doors, why are you penalising the other team so their supporters can't come and watch?
That means that, for example, they're not now because England have played both their games against Bulgaria, thankfully. Yeah. But if they are playing England or one of the other teams in the group, that means the other team do not get the support, as you say. So you're penalising the player. You're also giving the other team less of an opportunity to win because they don't have the support. Support does play a role.
Yeah, that's right. And as a punishment, it doesn't work. They've been doing this for a couple of decades now, and it's not made any difference to it at all. The definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Yes. I mean, the other thing is that in Bulgaria's case, 2 games behind closed doors is not going to make much difference, actually, now, because they are bottom of the table. Practically no chance of qualifying, even in second place. Really, their campaign is almost over. So those 2 games, win or lose, won't really, the fact that there's no fans there to support them, not really going to help or hinder their chance of qualification.
No, but if they'd been banned from the next tournament,
yes, that would have been better.
That would have an impact, and supporters of other countries or clubs would start to think, hang on a second, there is a real punishment here.
We need to do something about our fans.
Yeah.
Actually, that I think is a good idea. You're not going to get fined 75 grand or whatever immediately, just as a token gesture. And next tournament, which is the World Cup, or unless they can only work.
Well, UEFA can only do
UEFA can only work on stuff that are relevant to them. So UEFA will say you're not invited to play in the next tournament, which is in 4 years' time or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're out. Which would have a massive impact, wouldn't it?
It would have a huge impact, yes.
Certainly a lot more impact than you're playing Montenegro next month behind closed doors. Who cares? Yeah.
I think that one of the matches that was in Bulgaria this season, they had to play with part of the ground closed off as a punishment for this, but they didn't even fill the remaining part of the ground, so it was no punishment at all.
That doesn't mean anything anyway. Yeah. It is pretty pointless. That is what's been happening in Europe. That is Italy. I think Balotelli deserves our support for that one.
Absolutely right.
So Geoff and I believe that walking off is possibly one of the things that the players are going to have to do now.
I think they are.
I mean, the argument that they're big men, they're sportsmen, they're paid a lot of money.
No.
Doesn't mean that you should be abused.
No, there are 2 things happening here. One is racism. Racism is either right or it's wrong. If you believe it is wrong, then you have to put in place the mechanisms to punish people who carry it out, do it, say it, whatever. Now, as individuals, if they were walking down the street and somebody called them a black bastard, I don't think the black part of it would matter very much to them at all. It's just a word. But racism itself is a different thing than one word said to one person. It's wrong, and you have to stamp it out. That's what the authorities have got to do. Having said that, some of the racist abuse that the England players got in Bulgaria, particularly Jadon Sancho, it was just awful, and nobody should have to put up with that.
It's beyond people getting heated up at a football game. It is clearly that these are organised gangs of racists.
It's very much organised.
Using it as a platform.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember, but a few weeks ago there were these representatives of the ultras in one of these Italian clubs who said, yeah, it's organised. We target these players, and we're not racist, but we say these things to put them off to help our team to win. Well, yes, it is racist.
Yes, you're saying it, therefore.
Yeah, but anybody said, it's a tiny minority and blah, blah. No, it's rubbish. It's a sizable minority, if not the majority, of these fans, and something's got to stop it.
Right, absolutely. We'll move on. Last week, Derby County from the Championship in England sacked their captain, Richard Gough, for gross misconduct. He was involved in a car crash that led to the arrest not of him, but 2 of his teammates. He got knee ligament damage and was ruled out of playing for 15 months when he was in the back of a car that teammate Tom Lawrence was driving while under the influence of alcohol. Derby decided to end his contract and sack him. The other 2, Bennett, who was driving in another car and was also under the influence, were both fined 6 weeks' wages by the club in order to carry out 100 hours of unpaid work, community service, I guess, a 12-month community order, and banned from driving for 2 years. So 2 of them get 6 weeks punishment from the club, pay docs, but the captain, who was in the back of the car, apparently hadn't got his seatbelt on, is sacked.
And, okay, the 2 who drove whilst drunk, which is a crime,
Yes.
for which they have been punished, their contracts remain. Could it possibly be because they have a high sell-on value, and Richard Gough is 34 years old, and the injury will take him to the end of his contract, and therefore Derby don't think they can make any money from him? Do you think that might have something to do with it?
That is very cynical and probably exactly what happened.
What error, what crime did Gough commit? Well, he committed no crime. His error was getting in a car with a drunk driver, and nobody should ever do that, and that's his mistake. But it was a mistake.
I suppose they will claim that as captain, he should have said, you cannot drive, and I am not getting in the back of your car.
Well, he should have said that.
They were doing the driving, so
yeah,
let's say there were equal crimes.
They committed a crime, and he did not. So it's an absolute disgrace, and the lawyers are going to have a field day with Derby. This is going to cost them a lot of money.
Actually, yeah, that's not going to end there, is it? Obviously, his lawyers are going to love that.
Oh, yeah.
There's something very wrong with that. As you say.
It just shows how far Derby County have gone down since Frank Lampard left.
Yeah, something's happened there, hasn't it, as well? Yeah. Frank Lampard's ex-Derby County. All right, let's go back to the Premier League and some of the other things that happened there before we come to our predictions for next week. So look, Wolves got an away point at Arsenal. Good stuff for them. They're going strong now.
Well, they were going exactly as strong as they were last season.
Yeah, people have been saying they're not as good as they were, but they are. We said that on last week's podcast.
Well, before this weekend's match, last season after 9 games, Wolves were 6 points off 4th place. This season after 9 games, they are, have a guess.
Go on.
6 points off 4th place.
Oh, what a surprise, yeah.
Last season they had 9 goals from the opening 9 games. This season they have 12 goals from 9 games.
Wow.
Last season, Jimenez, their top scorer, had 2 by now. This season he has 3. Unbeaten Liverpool are the only Premier League team to have lost less Premier League games this season. So it doesn't really support the narrative of the crisis at Wolves.
They're not doing that badly at all. In fact, they're doing better. So Wolves are doing very well, of course. Sheffield United, the surprise package, I think, of this season. They've had a few some good weeks lately.
Well, I think they've been very good throughout the whole season. They look to be extremely well managed by a manager who knows what he's doing. He's managing the club's budget very well. I don't think most people could name one of their players, let alone 2 or 3.
Do you know, that's interesting? Yeah, I mean, people go, oh yes, it's Wilder as the manager, but know nothing about him, and then that's as far as it will go.
Well, what do we know about Sheffield United? Wilder is the manager, and he's a local man. So great, he's managing his local team. That's good, great to see. And they have overlapping centre backs. They played 3 at the back. What they worked on, and his encouragement to the centre backs is, if you find yourself out there and you can make the run, make it. And the other midfielders have to drop back and cover and run. What he's got happening in Sheffield United is basically total football.
Yeah, and they thumped Burnley, who are a good side. They thumped Burnley at the weekend.
If Chris Wilder was not a Yorkshire lad, then people would be making a fuss about the standard of the coaching and the performance and the tactics. But yeah, I mean, if you beat Burnley, you've played well.
I think we think Sheffield United are going to stay up.
Yes, definitely.
Brighton Hove Albion, who Steve Kennis-Kenton tipped to be relegated this season, are in 8th position.
Yeah, so
we're only a third of the way through the season, not even that. But they beat Norwich City. Brighton 8th in 8th. They're above Man United. They're above Tottenham. They're catching up with Arsenal.
Yep.
Will they sustain that for the rest of the season with a squad that probably doesn't have the depth of the rest of those teams up there in the heady heights?
It doesn't have the depth, and I suspect they'll finish bottom half, but I can't see them being relegated. As I told Steve many weeks ago.
Yes, Steve, if you're listening, and we know you are. You were told that Brighton are not going to go down. Doesn't look like they are. I mean, they did very well. But
Brighton are the same in one respect as Sheffield United. They've got a manager who knows what he wants to do. He gets it across to the players carry out his plan, and it works. There you go. So maybe if somebody could explain that to Unai Emery, then Arsenal might play better.
That's how you do it. Yes, you explain it, and they go and do it. Aston Villa, of course, were 1-0 up against Liverpool, as we said earlier, and went on to lose 2-1, but not a good sign in a way for Villa. They've been unlucky in many games.
I think they have been unlucky. The points they've got are no reflection on how well they've played this season. Their problem last weekend was a simple one, and the gods of football are very strange, but the gods of football on Saturday decided that teams in claret and blue were going to lose, and they did.
So that's but basically, apart from Watford against Chelsea, that was the other game.
Yeah, Chelsea looked good again, and Pulisic looked very good.
Yeah.
I think Lampard's managed that whole situation extremely well.
Yeah, so there we are. Chelsea deserved winners in that match. There was a bit of controversy with VAR from both sides, which is why Lampard has come out again and said that referees should be seen to and should be using the pitchside monitor more and not relying on people in another room.
Yes, but referees can't use the pitchside monitor because the head of the referees company, and it is a limited company, which is one of the problems, Mike Riley, has ordered them not to use the pitchside monitors.
Why?
Exactly. That's the only question that needs to be asked. Why? He came out with some absolute garbage, some total bollocks. I'm sorry for it, but it was that. And it was dishonest as well, saying, we need to protect the referees from the pressure they'd be under from the fans. So, they're not under pressure from the fans for the other 96 minutes of the match? Of course they are. And it goes with the territory. If you don't want that pressure, don't be a referee.
I mean, for the amount of time he'll be stood looking over the monitor and hopefully concentrating on what he's looking at, he won't be hearing the pressure from the fans anyway.
Well, exactly. And if you're a good referee, then the pressure isn't going to mean anything to you anyway. But the point is, Riley doesn't want the referees looking at those monitors making their own decisions because it will be them doing it, and it reduces his ability to influence the results, and that's the reason for it.
So we still believe there's a lot of influence.
Oh, absolutely.
VAR is being used for sinister, dark purposes.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. You look at some of the decisions, how an identical situation could be ruled one way one time and one way the other, and the problem is the referee is supposed to be in charge on the pitch, and the referee is now not in charge. The referee is not the final arbiter of what happens on a football pitch, and he should be.
Well, a few weeks ago, and it could make a big difference at the end of the season, but a few weeks ago, Leicester were on target for getting a 1-1 draw with Liverpool, very, very short time to go, and VAR went against Leicester. Nobody believes the VAR decision was right, but somebody may be. And this is just allegedly suggesting opinion from ourselves, maybe both of us. Somebody wants Liverpool to win.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can't have Leicester upsetting that.
No.
Because they're a small team that won't make a lot of money for TV rights, etc., should they get into Europe and beyond.
Well, that is one reason. And the other reason is the amount of money that is bet on Premier League matches. And
right. Yes.
The numbers are absolutely mind-boggling. They dwarf the TV revenue that these clubs get. That much is bet on the Premier League every single week.
Somebody wants to make sure that works out rightly for certain people.
And have a look at the shirts of Premier League football clubs, and how many betting companies are there on those?
Well, we did count them at one point. It was at least or possibly just over half of Premier League clubs are sponsored by betting companies.
Yes,
betting organisations, bookies, online, whatever their retail outlets, whatever they are.
When there is tens, sometimes £100 million at stake on a result, you're telling me that the people behind the betting syndicates are not putting pressure on other people to deliver those results? Of course they are.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. We just can't prove it. No. So we shall move on because we are running out of time. So let us have a little talk before we come to your trivia answer. Let's have a look ahead to the coming games this weekend. Friday, Norwich against Watford. That doesn't sound like a glamour draw of the weekend, does it?
No, it doesn't. Watford have got to come good at some point. Otherwise, they are going to be relegated. So let's say this weekend, Watford get their act together and they do it.
It's got to be against Norwich, hasn't it?
Yes.
You'd think, with all due respect to Norwich. And then you've got Chelsea against Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace, of course, lost to Leicester at home. Chelsea beat Watford, who are bottom of the table. That's a Chelsea win, but Crystal Palace are very, very good at closing teams down and being quite tight on the amount of goals they let in.
Yeah.
So that could be quite an exciting game.
It's at Chelsea, yes?
That's at Chelsea.
Yeah, Chelsea should win then, yeah. But Palace do like spoiling people's party, don't they?
Yes, they do. That is something that they have been known to do. They didn't manage it against Leicester, but this is the sort of party they would like to spoil, I think. Yeah. Then we've got the battle of the Claret and Blues, I suppose. Burnley against West Ham. could go into. Geoff is sighing heavily because West Ham have been disappointing so far.
Well, to put it mildly, yeah. I'd say Burnley win 2-1.
Oh, really? So you're not going to back your own team for that one?
No.
That's an interesting one. I think it's got a draw written all over it for me. I did say that I thought possibly Norwich against Watford would be a bit of a dull tie, but then we come across Newcastle against Bournemouth.
Yeah, away win. Bournemouth to win that, I think.
So you think Newcastle beating United, beating West Ham United, they've had a pretty good run of games lately.
Yeah.
You don't think that will continue? Bournemouth, of course, beat Man United, didn't they, at the weekend?
Yeah, but it was only Man United.
We're talking about Newcastle now.
Yeah.
So you think that'll be
away win? I think Bournemouth will win.
Bournemouth will do it. Southampton against Everton. Southampton were winning for a large part of the game against Man City. They haven't been good lately. They've lost twice in a week to Man City and once to Leicester. And previous games before them, they haven't won either. Everton also struggling.
Everton are struggling, yeah. My problem with the Southampton performance was they scored with pretty much their only chance. And that was a mistake by the goalkeeper. I mean, Ederson patting the ball out into the penalty area. Yeah,
that's true. So that didn't say anything about Southampton. It was,
Southampton will struggle to score, and that will happen for the whole of the season. I mean, they just don't have the firepower. Everton without Gomes in midfield, maybe if it forces them to play Moise Kean and rearrange things, Everton will start to look good. But the issue with Everton, of course, is that Silva is still the manager, and whilst he did very well last season, the assistant, who it turns out actually did everything, left. The assistant is now gone to a club in Portugal when their home ground has only got 5,000 people in it, and he's taken them to top of the Portuguese Premier League.
For the league.
So the brains appears to have left that.
So they've still got the looks with Silva, but they haven't got the brains.
So I don't know. I'll say a draw.
You're going to go for a draw. Yeah. Actually, Southampton and Everton, those are the two teams who both could lose their managers very shortly.
Yes.
So that is a big battle between two managers fighting for their jobs. Tottenham against Sheffield United at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Oh, that's going to be a tough game for Tottenham, that is.
It is going to be a tough game.
It's going to be a tough game because and Sheffield United play with the back three, so you'd have to think Kane's not going to get a lot of change out of three of them. That does free up the attacking wing-backs for Sheffield United on the right to get forward.
It is.
You can see Sheffield United winning that, actually.
You can, but I'm going to go for 2-1 for Tottenham.
Okay.
If Harry Kane is back, because he was not in the squad against Everton, but not an injury, an illness, so it could have been a cold. We don't know yet.
Well, his whole family went down with it, didn't they? So.
Oh, right, there you are. So it's a cold.
Yeah, something.
So hopefully he'll be back for that. Now, here's the fact. This is, for me, probably the draw of the weekend. Leicester City against Arsenal.
Well, you've got to say home win, haven't you?
Well, I think Leicester can do Arsenal, yeah.
I think Leicester will beat Arsenal, I would say, yeah.
We don't know what's going to happen between now and Saturday, but you might be listening to this podcast after Leicester beat Arsenal 2-1. But maybe Arsenal will have lost their manager during the week. Anything could have happened, but I think Leicester is strong for that one, aren't they?
Oh, I think so, yeah. And their defence, Leicester's defence is very, very good. Arsenal's attack has stopped firing, and Arsenal definitely going to concede goals. I mean, their defence is the most un-Arsenal-like defence I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So, Leicester should win.
They should win. It could be one of those where, a team is on a great run of results and then suddenly loses. It could be that one, but they should win that one. Then Wolves against Aston Villa.
Oh.
Sort of a localish derby.
It is a local derby, yeah. Draw. Derbies tend to be draws, and I think that one will be a draw.
That one is a draw. Then we've got Manchester United against Brighton. Brighton, of course, above United in the league. Brighton above Manchester United. They are away at United.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for a home win for that one.
Yeah, home win. Yeah.
I think, with all due respect to Brighton, I think Manchester United have improved of late. They did have a setback against Bournemouth, but I think they'll be too strong for Brighton.
The £910 million squad will beat Brighton.
Yeah. And temper that with a bit of cold, hard facts. And then we have got Liverpool against Manchester City on Sunday as well. We say, don't we, it's a 6-pointer. But in this case, it really is, isn't it?
Well, and last season it was, 0-0? Same match, I think. I'll stick with a draw.
So that's going to be a draw. Liverpool against Man City. It should possibly be a draw, just by the whole scheme of things. And the way they are very similar to each other. And I think they'll both be very, very cagey. They both play attacking football, etc., but I think they'll both be very, very careful. I think it could be quite a dull game, actually.
Well, we'll see. But a draw, I think. Yeah.
So that's a draw for that one. We will post those predictions, our predictions in full with the actual scores, and Steve Kenner's-Kenton's contribution as well over the coming week on our Facebook page, Karle and Kenner's Hitting the Bar. Before we go to your trivia question, a quick thank you to 93.6 Global Radio here on the Costa del Sol for all their support. Right, Geoff, time to wrap up the show with your question and answer.
The question was, there are 2 grounds in England that have hosted all 3 of an FA Cup final, an England Football International, and a cricket test match. Now, most people know that the Oval is one of those. So what is the other ground? And it is a football ground. That was the question. And the answer is Bramall Lane, Sheffield. Sheffield United.
Sheffield United?
Yeah.
Bramall Lane. I mean, a load of... Well, I mean, I was going to say Old Trafford, for example, or possibly, one of the Birmingham stadiums, because you'd think, so maybe Aston Villa's ground would be big enough. But that's a weird one. Bramall Lane. Fantastic. We'll have more from Geoff's trivia bag in the next show. But in the meantime, to Geoff Saunders, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
From me, Chris Carl, do join us next time for more Karle and Kenner's Hitting the Bar, the football podcast.
You've been listening to Karle and Kenner's Hitting the Bar. Join us again next week for more of their twisted football news, all of their weird football views. You can find them here every week on Karle and Kenner's Hitting the Bar. We'll see you again shortly.